Thank you and good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us. Today I'm pleased to be joined by Keith Maddox, who is the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the San Diego and Imperial Counties Labor Council, as well as Vince Hall, who is the CEO of Feeding San Diego, and Jim Floros, who's President and CEO of the Jacob and Cushman San Diego Food Bank. I want to begin by thanking San Diegans who continue to step up, who continue to heed all of the social distancing, all of the orders. Thank you for doing what you're doing. April, as we've said from the very beginning, is going to be the critical month for us to beat back this virus. And while it definitely appears that we are getting closer to being on the other side, we of course continue to need to do our part. Our actions, I will tell you, our collective actions as San Diegans has put our city and our region into a very strong position. For that I am grateful. Our first responders are grateful because everybody's been doing the right thing. It has been making a difference. So I wanted to start my remarks off with that word of thanks, because as we have talked about over these last several weeks, it hasn't been easy. It's been tough. It continues to be tough. But to see that positive momentum, to see the results that shows that it's working is very encouraging. Today I'm going to provide a couple of updates on a variety of topics. First, an announcement regarding neighborhood parks. Second, an update related to the meeting of the Recover Advisory Group focused on the economy that we announced last week. And third, the great need, the very great need for food donations and San Diegans who have stepped up to meet this need. And I'm going to have a pleasure to introduce some of those folks in just a second. Topic number one, the limited reopening of neighborhood parks. We've come a long way in 5 weeks. We have indeed seen a lot of progress. So today I want to provide an update on our parks and steps that we are taking and continue to take if we see the continued positive results. Because there is a light at the end of the tunnel. In March, late March, as I think everyone knows, we closed all parks and beaches. We had too many gatherings and potentially spreading the virus. We overwhelmed the ability of our officers to enforce health rules. Since then, San Diegans have been following the rules, and our hospitals have been able to meet that patient demand thus far. We are absolutely entering a new phase of this crisis. We are in the 4th week of stay-at-home orders. And we want to provide, of course, an outlet for people to be physically and mentally active as we grapple with this new normal going forward. Last week, we met with the police officers, firefighters, and lifeguards, and our park and rescue staff that I convened, which my goal was how do we have a phased and safe reopening of parks. So today I do have an announcement to make. Tomorrow we are going to begin a limited reopening of neighborhood parks for individual and passive use. This decision is made in conjunction with County Public Health and our public safety officers. And what these neighborhood park openings mean: you can go to a neighborhood park as long as you practice physical distancing, you participate in individual activities such as walking or jogging. And we strongly recommend, as the county does, that you wear facial coverings. What you can't do at neighborhood parks is gather in groups. Drive there because parking lots are going to remain closed. Cannot participate in active sports or groups. Playgrounds, basketball courts, soccer fields, and the like will remain closed. A full list of reopened neighborhood parks is going to be available starting tomorrow on the city's website at sandiego.gov/coronavirus. Our regional parks, beaches, boardwalks, golf courses, and major trails remain closed at this time. But I do have another update regarding these amenities. This afternoon, I held a call with coastal mayors, state parks, and representatives of the county. Our goal on this call was a safe, phased, and coordinated approach to opening some sort of water access in a way that is coordinated with our public health officials. I want to thank all of the mayors and their team that joined on this call this afternoon. Our cities will be prepared to open beaches and the bays as soon as the county authorizes the water access, which could be by the end of the month, as you heard today in the county briefing. This will be a data-driven approach as dictated by our county health officials, and that's incredibly important. And this will also be a public safety-driven approach as dictated by our public safety professionals, our lifeguards, our fire rescue, our police department. So I want to thank all San Diegans for your diligence thus far. And based upon how the public responds and how we're doing with these neighborhood park openings, we will determine the next positive steps. And whether we look at other potential park openings or whether we have to dial things back because if people did not follow the physical distancing rules. But I'm confident San Diegans will. As I said before, opening these neighborhood parks is a direct reflection on the very good work that San Diegans have been doing, and we need you to continue to do that. So thank you. Topic number 2, an update on our economic advisory group. Today, Supervisor Greg Cox and I kicked off the first meeting of the Responsible COVID-19 Economic Reopening, RECOVER group, also known, as I said, for the group that's really going to help get our economy going again. We all know what this virus has done to so many small businesses and large businesses across our county. I'm proud of the work that the city has done, my colleagues working together in the city council, as we have helped to protect San Diegans from eviction. We have extended business taxes and building permits, and we have created, of course, a $6 million small business relief fund. But there is so much more work that still needs to be done. We want to be ready, all of us, the city of San Diego and region-wide, which is why this group exists, to reopen and reactivate the economy when our health officials say the time is right. We are partnering with the County of San Diego, the Chamber of Commerce, and the regional EDC to craft a region-wide recovery plan. This is bipartisan, it's binational, and a group of leaders from the business, tourism, life science, hospital sectors, you name it. I want to thank all of them that participated in the hour-and-a-half call this afternoon. This group is going to continue to meet as frequently as necessary. Our goal is very simple. How do we strategically and safely reactivate the economy when the time is right? I asked each member of the group, and I tasked each member of the group with providing short-term and long-term recommendations related to how their industry can reopen safely. We're also planning to discuss different actions that both local governments can take to help support the community and how businesses can support one another because we're united in this region. We said from the very beginning we want this to be a regional approach, and that's exactly what it is. So I look forward to this group and all San Diegans affected to help get our economy back on track. Third topic, I think all of us know, as paychecks disappear and rent and utility and grocery bills do not. The need for food donations is the greatest it's ever been. Too many of our San Diegans have been suddenly unemployed. And everybody hears how the help needs to come, and I'm really proud to introduce some folks that have been working very, very hard on that help. I am joined by organizations that are working to keep our community fed, pure and simple. And I can tell you what they're doing is amazing. I'm going to let them say a few words, but they need your help. And that's why I've asked them to come today. Together we are calling on all San Diegans to do what you can to support these local organizations that are distributing food. Because we're only going to get through this by working together as one city and as one region. As you know, I normally highlight a single individual that is stepping up to make a difference during this press conference. But today I have 3 leaders in the community who I'm going to ask to come to the microphone in just a second. And I particularly want to thank every San Diegan who has stepped up to give or distribute food at the stadium on Saturdays. I've had the honor and the privilege to be there and to see those volunteers, to see the organization, to see the volunteers that are there before the sun even comes up. And they're doing it because they want to help their fellow San Diegans, and the cars that have been lining up. But the organization and the speed in which the food is delivered, the smiles on the volunteers' faces because they care about each other, because they care about San Diegans. It's been phenomenal to see. This last weekend, the volunteers handed out over 6,500 packages of food to thousands of San Diegans. And I've had, as I said, the pleasure of getting to know some of these volunteers over the past several weeks, and the families and what they're doing, including Rebecca and Lourdes, who bring their daughters with them every Saturday to help out. And as a family, they've committed to continue to help their fellow San Diegans at the stadium every week. So to Lourdes and Rebecca particularly, thank you, and all of the volunteers who are there. You are the definition of San Diego Steps Up. And the gentleman that's really been helping to lead this organization, and it truly is an organization, as it evolved over the coming weeks, is Keith Maddox, who's the San Diego and Imperial Counties Labor Council. Keith, my friend, thank you for stepping up and representing the best of this city, the best of this region. And all of your members who have so much to do on their own, but take time out of their weekend because they care about San Diegans. The efforts that I'm going to describe right now are free of charge. We know that there's the need, and so when you hear the opportunity to give to the food bank, when you hear the opportunity to give to Feeding San Diego, please consider if you can. Because seeing firsthand the families that are coming through with the smile and the waves through their cars, we need your help now more than ever. Keith Maddox, please come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for having us here and for those kind words about what some of the things that we've been doing and also what the city has been doing to kind of lead in this crisis that we have. I also want to thank both the Food Bank and Feeding San Diego. We partner, our Labor Council, the San Diego and Imperial Counties Labor Council partners with both of those organizations. And it's been a real lifesaver for our members and for San Diego. I mean, we've been partnering with them. We've distributed food to over 6,500 families across the region in the last 5 weeks through our operations, both for union members and then the Saturday distributions. And every week, you heard the mayor talk about it. You see some of the slides over here. Every week we have union teachers and grocery workers, home care providers, construction workers, stage hands, all of them, some of them that are working around the clock and some of them who are laid off that are putting their skills to work to help feed San Diego's families. And it's that power of people standing together to help one another in our communities. It's about solidarity. It's the principles that our union movement is founded upon. Some of our members were some of the very first to lose their jobs and to feel the pain in this crisis, whether they were working at the hotels, the convention center, the arenas. You know, we started getting reports of conventions canceling and concerts canceling and those conferences that were all coming about. And so our workers immediately began to lose their paychecks. And now they need a little help to feed their own families. But the spirit of our members has never wavered, as you've heard the mayor talk about and see some of the slides of being out there and giving back. And it's like Phil, who's an IATSE 122 member that works at the convention center and at concerts. He's a stagehand, works behind the scene, and he brings these conventions and concerts to life. He was one of the very first to immediately lose his paycheck. And he responded by volunteering, by coming to our union distributions to help other workers in need while he was also needing a helping hand himself to put food on his table. And every day we see more and more of our members across San Diego being impacted. They're laid off, have their hours cut. And so many of these are tourism workers or they work at other operations that feed our tourism economy, like Mindy, who's worked for 30 years at the San Diego Zoo, the world-class San Diego Zoo, as a tour operator driving a double-decker bus. She's had a career of helping others and being able to show people across the globe about the San Diego Zoo, and now Mindy is being laid off and needs a helping hand to put food on her table as well. There's thousands of stories like this about Mindy and Phil all across this city, and that needs that help. You heard the mayor talk about the distribution. If you ever get the chance just to look and see what it looks like with 1,100 cars lined up on a Saturday waiting for food, they get there for a 9 o'clock start. When we get there at 5:45, they're already lining up in the mornings. Just looking and needing help. They wrap that entire stadium. They fill up the parking lots throughout there, and there's thousands of people that we have to turn away that we can't get to that day. It's heartbreaking. I mean, it's really heartbreaking. And these are proud workers that many of them's never been without a job, never asked for a helping hand, but that needs one now. And we got to all do our part to lend that hand. It's that labor movement solidarity that we talk about, standing together with each other in times of need. This crisis is nothing like we've seen. This is one that it started as a health crisis, then it became economics, and now it's just being about putting food on the table. And you'll hear our friends at the food bank and at Feeding San Diego talk about the struggles to keep food in here to feed as many people that's hurting right now. Today we're asking the public to join our labor movement in solidarity. You heard the mayor talk about funds that everybody's raising. We've set up our own fund to help workers impacted by the crisis as well. And our unions, we develop relationships with these workers. It's our members. We're out there every week trying to help them put food on the table, but also trying to help them file their unemployment claims and get that moved through the system, to help them with paying their utilities, help them try to get access to that, and to help them try to maintain their health care, because so many of these laid off workers now are beginning to lose their health care. So if you're watching this and you have a little extra, you can give as little as $10 to help workers like at our hotels and convention center, arenas and the zoo and airport, parking lot attendants, and many, many other workers that's out of work needing a helping hand. You can contribute to our union member fund at www.unionyes.org/donate. And what I would say is, we all need help right now. We need you to stay safe. You heard the mayor talking about opening up parks, community parks. We just ask everybody, follow the guidance of our health officials, wear your mask, keep your safe distancing, and all let's stay safe and healthy during this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. And again, thank you for the phenomenal work that you're organizing every single Saturday out at the stadium. Next, I'd like to have Vince Hall come up with Feeding San Diego. Vince, thank you for everything that Feeding San Diego continues to do more and more and more every week. We need you now more than ever. Come on up.
Thank you very much, Mayor Faulconer. Thank you for your leadership of the city, guiding us through this crisis. Thank you for responding to every ask from Feeding San Diego with enthusiasm and solutions. And thank you also for coming to the Saturday distributions at the stadium, not just with an eye toward kicking it off, and given the scope of your responsibilities, nobody would fault you for leaving those distributions by 9:15, but to see you there at 10:15 and at 11:15, still putting food in cars, still bringing hope to the community, still providing personal service in addition to your public service is inspiring, and we thank you for that. I had the privilege of leading Feeding San Diego, and we provided over 26 million meals last year to families in need across the county through a network of 300 local charities, food pantries, and distribution sites. Before the COVID-19 crisis, 1 out of every 8 people in our county was struggling with hunger on a regular basis, and that rate tragically was higher amongst children, with 1 out of every 6 kids. But today, we're in the largest hunger crisis of perhaps a century. Hundreds of thousands of San Diegans are in need of food assistance due to unemployment, to school closures, to business closures, and many of these families are accessing food assistance for the first time. Feeding San Diego is operating a vast food rescue network across San Diego County, rescuing food from 530 places, and that's food that would go to the landfill if we weren't capturing it and diverting it to families in need. But unfortunately, because consumer demand at grocery stores is so high, that food has been cut by almost half. To supplement that, we have in fact been buying food at an enormous rate. In the last 4 weeks, we have purchased 60 truckfuls of food, and we have spent over $1.5 million on food purchases. So I thank the mayor for his call to support Feeding San Diego and the San Diego Food Bank with donations. Our website, feedingsandiego.org, is available for donations, and it would be helpful. And I thank the city firefighters who stepped up with a major donation to Feeding San Diego in the last week. We're continuing to work around the clock to meet this increased demand for services, and we are really thankful for the San Diego Imperial County's Labor Council for their leadership on the distribution that is occurring every Saturday morning. But that's not the only distribution. If you visit feedingsandiego.org, we have a map that is clickable. You can zoom into your neighborhood and you can find distributions that are easily available to you no matter where you live in the city or the county for that matter. From San Ysidro to Oceanside, out to Borrego Springs, we are providing services. This community is really special, and during a crisis, whether it was the 2003 wildfires or the 2007 wildfires, we come together as a community, even at a moment when we have to remain socially distant, and we work together to get ourselves, our friends, our neighbors, our faith communities, our colleagues through a disaster. And Feeding San Diego needs the community's help now more than ever. This morning I was at Dewey Elementary School kicking off a military family food distribution, part of our Feeding Heroes program, and I talked to a military spouse whose husband is literally on deployment in a combat zone, and she and her kids are struggling with hunger right here in our community of San Diego. And we're very proud to serve those active duty military and veteran families, as we are all San Diegans in need. But Mayor Faulconer, thank you so much for inviting me to be here today on behalf of everybody at Feeding San Diego, our board of directors, our volunteers, and our community supporters. We really appreciate this recognition and this call to action for the betterment of San Diego.
Thank you, Vince. We greatly appreciate all of the work that you are doing. It really speaks volumes. And last but certainly not least, Jim Flores of the San Diego Food Bank. Jim has always been there for this community. Just like Feeding San Diego, the work that you're doing day in and day out, Jim, thank you. I am so appreciative. The city is so appreciative. Families are so appreciative. And please come up and take the opportunity to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor Faulconer. Thank you for your leadership during this time of crisis. The first and most important message to get out to the community is that the San Diego Food Bank and our North County Food Bank chapter are open for business. There's enough food, and people should just work within the system to get the food they need to feed their families. All of our programs will continue during the crisis. Before the crisis, we estimated about 1 in 7 people in San Diego County, about 450,000 people were termed food insecure. We are feeding about 350,000 people a month, and we do that through 200 distribution sites strategically located throughout the county, and then a network of 500 nonprofit partners that have feeding programs. Just in the month of March, we saw a 67% increase in the amount of food that we distributed. That's about 50% more than we did last year at this time, and we fed an additional 200,000 people just during the month of March. And we think as we move into April, that number is going to go exponentially. We could feed up to 700,000 people in the month of April. For people who need food, call 866-350-FOOD, 866-350-FOOD, or log on to sandiegofoodbank.org, get food. Each week we update our website, and we'll list out the 100 food distributions that we'll be conducting that coming week, and that's not including the network of 500 nonprofit partners that we partner with. We have a senior program that provides food boxes to 14,000 seniors each month. All 65 of those sites remain open. So as I said, again, we are conducting over 100 distributions per week. We've put together a number of food distribution safety precautions. We have touchless distributions, food lines, social spacing, and obviously seniors who participate in the senior program can send a proxy to pick up their food box. We have warehouse precautions for our volunteer base. Again, social spacing, gloves, masks, hand washing stations, sanitizer to ensure that our volunteers are safeguarded for their good work that they are helping us package and sort the food that we get out on a daily basis. So how can San Diego be part of the solution? What's the call to action? Well, we still need volunteers because, again, volunteers are a key part of our distribution model and our supply chain. The volunteers, the community has really heeded our requests, and we've seen volunteerism has actually increased about 26%. Food donations. We absolutely need food donations. Actually, since the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis, we've seen almost an 80% drop of food drive donations. So if people want to help out, be part of the solution and donate food, we appreciate that very much. Any shelf-stable product would be great. We love protein, so peanut butter is king. So donate some peanut butter to the San Diego Food Bank, and obviously financial contributions because we are ordering a lot of food, as Vince mentioned. We put in our first $1 million order of food about 2 weeks ago. That second $1 million food order is on its way, and the third one is probably close behind that. And that is not something that we normally have done. So we're working hard to make sure there's enough food to feed those in need. If we all band together and we stay calm, we can weather the storm. Thank you, Mayor Faulconer, again for your leadership during this time.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much. Appreciate all of your help and support with the literally life-changing work that you are doing for San Diego families. With that, we will conclude. We will get through this together, working as one city to get us on the other side of this. And I'd be happy to pause and answer any questions from members of the media.
The first question from today comes from Laura with 10 News.
Go ahead, Laura.
Hi, Mayor. Yes, I have a two-part question. I wanted to know if you could provide a more specific timeline for when the beaches will be reopened. And then with the warmer temperatures that we're having towards the end of the week, how do you plan on making sure that people aren't going out there to enjoy the sunny weather that we're going to be getting?
Oh, great questions, and thank you. I think what you heard today with from our county public health officials, as San Diegans have continued to do the right thing, and April was going to be that key month. If that continues and those metrics continues, as they mentioned earlier this afternoon, that we might be in a position to open up that access by the end of the month. I'm going to make sure that we as mayors have a plan that is ready to go if in fact and when that water access is reopened. And I'm pretty confident that by San Diegans continuing to do what they've been doing, that will get us to that time. And I think that answers the second part of your question, which is we know it's been tough, we know it's been difficult, it's been a little cold and rainy. That's going to change in the next couple days. But again, we do not want to give back those gains. We want to continue what we're doing so we can gradually do the release valve. I think with neighborhood parks, San Diegans are going to be able to do the right thing, do that practice and do that social distancing. So as we get that information from the county as to whether we're able to move forward with the beach water access by the end of the month, we will have plans in place to make that happen, whatever date that ends up being.
And the next question comes from Andrew Bowen with KPBS. Balboa Park is a regional park, but parts of it act more as neighborhood parks. Will parts of or all of Balboa Park be opened tomorrow?
Good question, Andrew. And yes, Balboa Park, of course, is a significant regional parks, but there are portions of Balboa Park that do serve more of a community and neighborhood aspect, particularly some of those areas, for example, the West Mesa. To make sure we have all of the specifics, I'd encourage you to go to the city's website. Things like museums and others as part of Balboa Park will not be open, of course, but some of those smaller neighborhood areas will be. So you can go to the city's website for all of that information.
And the last question comes from Ken Stone with the Times of San Diego. Do you support Chief Nislight's decision not to cite downtown protesters on Saturday?
The police department's done a remarkable job, really balancing protests, people's First Amendment rights by keeping people safe. And again, we strongly are encouraging everybody to follow those social distancing rules. By doing that, that's what has enabled us to help flatten that curve and get us on the other side sooner rather than later. And please do that because it's important for our first responders. We've talked about police officers, lifeguards, fire rescue. The police department has a very important job to balance all of that versus our First Amendment rights. They will continue to exercise, I think, the appropriate discretion and balance. Not an easy thing to do, but I continue to strongly support the department in terms of the approach they're taking, which is to strike that right balance in terms of First Amendment and also the continued effort to ensure that we are practicing social distancing. I believe that's our last questions. Again, I want to end where I began, which is to say thank you to San Diegans for continuing to do the right thing. The results are encouraging. Let's keep it up. And a final word of thanks to the individuals who are here today, Keith Maddox, Jim Flores, and Vince Hall. Thank you for helping to feed San Diego. Your generosity, your compassion is on display for the whole county and state and world to see. Let's keep it up. Thank you, and that will conclude today's briefing.